Tonight, I'll continue with the thoughts that I had from last night about responding to being emotionally triggered. One important aspect I thought about that I'd like to share is how do I tell when I'm over it? It's an important question because whenever I'm triggered and somebody asks me if I'm okay, I invariably will say that I'm okay, that I can handle it, when really I'm not. And most people can see that I'm not. So, how do I know when I'm actually over an emotional trigger? Perhaps it's best for me to explain it by telling you about an episode when I was triggered for a long period, from far enough in my past that I don't implicate or identify anyone. I've been in aged care services for a lot of years, and at one point I had a care worker who was working for me, and she was careless, and she made a mistake with giving food to an elderly client that she shouldn't have, that was outside of the client's prescribed diet, and it could have cost the client her life. And it was avoidable because we have processes and training for that staff for it, and there was no excuse. It so it wasn't the first time this worker had made the mistake, and so I disciplined the staff for that mistake. She wasn't very happy, and it turned into a big complaint. Her union got involved, and it dragged on for months. And the longer that it dragged on for, the more triggered I became. And I recall one meeting when I sat with the union representative and the worker, and it turned into a shouting match. What I remember is telling them how big a risk what this worker was doing to the client, and how old and frail the client is, and we can't have these clients bear with such safety risks. At that meeting, we arrived at a negotiated resolution. I wasn't happy with the resolution, but I agreed with it so we can move on. And I use this example because I didn't emotionally move on from that episode when the negotiated solution was reached. There was no more actions to take, but I still spent weeks and months thinking about it and ruminating about it. And like I described yesterday, the story just kept changing in my head, and only in my head, just on and on and on it went. Things only started to change emotionally for me when kindness started to enter my thoughts. The kindness towards the worker whom I had for all that episode considered to be an adversary. And it's when I started to be able to hear what she was telling me that I've ignored for a long time, that she too needed protection just as much as our elderly clients, that she was over 60 years old herself, and the disciplinary action that significantly impact on her livelihood places her and her family in very vulnerable positions. And perhaps the kitchen work wasn't suitable for her, but having been with the company for nearly 10 years and working consistently at full time throughout all that time, maybe the company can help her move on to something more suitable rather than acting to punish her for her mistakes. And the kindness started to extend to the union official whom I fought so hard for so long. And I started to be able to finally hear the question that she consistently kept asking. And that question was, is it reasonable what I'm doing? And to move from interpreting that question to be one that I thought was meant to antagonize me, to begin to understand that there is a valid point in that question, that and to realize the answer is no. What I was doing with the disciplinary action that I decided on was not reasonable. And then the kindness extends to myself, to face the fact that I knew as it got messier and messier that I had a lot to do with why it got messier, to forgive myself for being human and not being able to make the whole problem go away, to forgive myself and say, I've done what I can and it's okay. And the stage when I knew I was no longer triggered by the episode is when I can draw on gratitude, to be grateful that I lived through that experience, to no longer fight it and wish that it didn't happen, to wish that it would go away, to know that I'm better with it as a part of me and as part of my history. So there it is. There's an episode that I handle very poorly and will always recollect it with some level of regret and some pain. But at the same time, I can hold on to it as part of me, to move on and to be grateful for it.